Hey. This is another episode of Necessary Roughness brought to you by Bite Size Sports. This is our playoff wild card recap, divisional preview sort of episode. I had to run a little bit early today, but Ben should be joining me around regular start time, around 8 there. And we may also get a special appearance from another one of our bite-size cohorts. But I think the only way to do this any justice, and the only way for me to not be noticeably dejected and noticeably distracted as I recap the other 5 games, is to recap the performance my Vikings put forth in the wild card round in Arizona at LA. That was about as disgusted as I've been with a wire-to-wire performance by the Vikings on that kind of stage in a long time. It's not 41 donut in 2000 to the Giants, but holy crap, does it feel close. I'm a prisoner of the moment still, of course. But, that was just – you put up a third of your scoring average in back-to-back games to end your season. You lost to 2 teams twice for your 4 losses on the season. And what is really tough to grapple with that, particularly for the Rams rematch, is, the Vikings – it's tough to say this now, but the Vikings were the better team coming into that game. They're road favorites, 14 regular season wins, coach of the year, front runner, assistant coach of the year, front runner for Brian Flores. And I think Flores got pantsed by Sean McVay and the machinations of that offense. It was, and I still haven't brought myself to watch the tape back, guys. So I'm not gonna have, as informed of of takes on this game as I tend to once it's showtime on Tuesdays. But with it being a Monday nighter, if I had the extra time by now, I may have watched it, but I don't know. Maybe I never will. I might not ever watch it. I think it's one of those performances that really highlights the deficiencies of the roster, but it also highlights that as a coaching staff, this has been one of the best staffs in the league all season for the Vikings. But it highlights, I think, the difference in kind of where they are in their evolution as head coaches and play callers between Sean McVay and Kevin O'Connell. McVay had, more prominent early success than KO has as a play caller. The 17, 18, 19 for the Rams were gangbusters on the offensive side of the football. You can probably still picture 2018 Chiefs-Rams 51-48 or 54-51, something like that. And so that was the really high-flying 11 personnel. Defenses aren't really putting a roof on Mahomes and similar types of offenses that are really able to push it down the field. There was that really heightened success, again, that living in 11 personnel, wide zone running game. And then after the Super Bowl victory, of course, they lost some key pieces, but the following season, McVay's offense just didn't really have the same teeth. What the Patriots put on tape in their Super Bowl against the Rams was probably sort of instructive, but the time gap there, the Rams were obviously very good thereafter. But McVay kind of had to go back to the drawing board and come up with a new identity for his offense, and they went from that pretty much strictly wide zone running style to a more hard-nosed power scheme, gap scheme, a lot of duo, a lot of like split zone to the inside, and more 4 yards in a cloud of dust than they ever were. And you're starting to see that in the personnel decisions when they brought in multiple 325, 330 plus pound interior offensive linemen. In re-signing Kevin Dotson after that Flyer deal, you draft Steve Avila, you bring over Jonah Jackson, and all of a sudden they've got so much beef on the interior that once they got healthy, that offensive line, you recall over that 1-4 start, they had a smattering of offensive line injuries. Havenstein has missed some time this year. Alaric Jackson missed time. Steve Avila was out to start the season. Jonah Jackson was out to start the season. They didn't know whom of those two was going to actually be playing center initially, and it wound up being Jonah Jackson with Steve Avila at left guard, where he played in college. And since then, they've been really solid. The performance of the Vikings defense to sort of counter what the Rams were doing. And in the first matchup, Flores admitted, hey, we didn't know Puka Nacua was going to be active. He was activated earlier that day. And this time you did. You knew exactly what the personnel was going to look like on the other side of the field. Again, I haven't watched the tape back, but to me on the broadcast, the Rams weren't doing anything extraordinary. The Rams didn't come with a curveball. And all they did was execute the shit they do well perfectly, almost all night. Matt Stafford was unconscious. There were some instances where, Flores did win on the whiteboard and got a free runner. The Rams were just better. That's all it was. Other side of that same coin, when Sam Darnold was pressured on 26 of his 49 dropbacks. 11 of those were actually quick pressures, several of which did have a free runner for the Rams. And the quickness in decision making when Stafford was faced with that same situation compared to Darnold's hesitancy in those situations, I think, was glaring. But you've also got to be aware of how these plays are designed. McVay put Matt Stafford in a better position to succeed than Kevin O'Connell put Sam Darnold. I think if you're splitting the offensive blame pie, I think it's equal shares O'Connell and Darnold, and that accounts for probably 75 to 80% of it. The offensive line had its issues for sure, but when you're getting free rushers in the blitz, the quarterback has some culpability for that. You need to be able to ID that guy when you're setting your protections. If you think he's going to be coming, you need to be able to have hot answers behind the blitzer to kind of replace that space, especially if they're not doing so as a defense. If they're not rotating behind a fire zone immediately, then you've got to be able to drop it right behind that blitzer the way the Rams were able to do consistently. But what was striking about the Rams offense compared to the Vikings, we talk all the time about how long developing the Vikings offense is, and that's by design. A lot of 7-step drops, a lot of turn your back play action, and set it up. And one of the highest times to throw in the league on the season was Sam Darnold. And a lot of that didn't have that much to do with him. When these situations arose where the defense was getting a free rusher or there was pressure or there was a kerfuffle with offensive line assignments and maybe they slid away and got duped by the defensive pressure. In those instances, the Rams were able to push the ball down the field quickly. Stafford getting the ball out in 2.5 seconds, 3 seconds, and gashing us. Getting big chunks down the field with pressure in your face is something they were able to do, and the Vikings were not. And that's just as much design as it is decisiveness of the quarterback. And there's definitely a gap there with decisiveness of the quarterback. Matt Stafford, veteran, been here before. Darnold's first playoff game. Granted, Week 18 may as well have been his first playoff game. And he played better this week than he did in Detroit. But the fact of the matter is, he just went out there and made this offseason a lot more straightforward for the Vikings. You can't bring him back on a sizable number. And I don't think he played himself out of a desperate contract from a worse situation that he should take. Through the first 16 weeks of the season, he earned 16 games of the season, I should say, he earned a stupid contract from a bad organization. He earned a Derek Carr to the Saints deal. He earned a Daniel Jones extension, but not with the Vikings. This is not going to be a situation that carries into next season at the quarterback position. It's going to be J.J. McCarthy time. And for that, I'm grateful. But everything lined up for the Vikings to have an even more disappointing ending by actually getting to the NFC Championship or at least winning a playoff game, just like 98, 09, 17. You even had the retread, cast-off quarterback in his first year with the team, like Randall Cunningham, Brett Favre, Case Keenum. Randall played 3 games in 97, started 3 games in 97. Doesn't really count. That it just kind of felt like one of those. I wasn't ready to be disappointed yet, which was the frustrating thing. And you went out there and you got out-physicaled by a team you were better than. You got out-schemed by a team you're better than. And there's no excuses for that. This coaching staff visibly Sorry about that, guys. I think my internet just kind of flubbed out on me. Consummate professional John Boyd, high-level production on these kind of shows. If you waited out that 60 seconds or whatever it was, I appreciate you sticking around. But to kind of finish my thought on the Vikings, I think there was a lot made of the culture that Kevin O'Connell's built since he got here, but particularly this season, the way the team lifted Sam Darnold up as much as they could. But, as a fan base and as an organization, it seems as though just as Sisyphus was about to get the boulder to the top of the hill, the gods punished us again for our hubris and pushed it back down for us to eternally roll almost to the top before getting deja vu with a just disgusting playoff performance. Disgusting. And you can paint it as purple as you want to paint it. And I'm generally the guy to be that way. I'm usually the guy to kind of zig when everybody's zagging, when everybody's getting really frustrated with what they saw on the broadcast. I'm usually the guy to go back and say, hey, on this one, there actually really wasn't anywhere to go. Or, hey, on this one, his assignment is this, so it's not really on him. I don't have any interest in doing any of that shit this time. All I want to do is kind of go macro with my takeaways and sort of leave it at that. And then I'll talk a little bit about the Rams and then sort of the Vikings offseason. And I'll do that for, all of these teams who have been eliminated. But it was mid-third quarter when you could see that the coaching staff, and I'm, as an extension of that, probably some of the players gave up. You gave up. You rolled over with a ton of football left to be played. The play caller who led the largest regular season comeback in NFL history rolled over down 18 in the third quarter and allowed 53 better prepared men, a better prepared coaching staff, and a better organization right now to, in a stadium that was probably 70% Vikings fans. If you're from Minnesota, you know that every snowbird we've got is either in Arizona or Naples, Florida. And the odds were good. We were going to have a fuckload of them down there, and we did. This was essentially a home playoff game. Bitch and moan all you want about a 14-win wildcard team. You got national tragedied into a home playoff game, and you rolled over before the clock struck zero. It was disgusting. It was disgusting. There are going to be a lot of long, hard looks in the mirror over this offseason. And the vibes are great. Everybody loves everybody. Everybody's friends. That's awesome. How about go fucking act like it? How about go play for Harrison Smith, who may have just played his last game as a Minnesota Viking, the longest tenured player, I think, on any team right now. Definitely on the Vikings, drafted in 2012. If you're going to roll over and play with no urgency and let the play clock go down to 1 late in the third quarter, down 3 scores, you have no respect for Harrison Smith. You have no respect for the other guys on this team who are going to be gone for financial reasons or for age or for whatever. So this culture you've created, this vibe you've cultivated over this entire season couldn't stand up to the adversity of being down 3 scores in a playoff game. And you've got the firepower to come back from something like that. You've come back from worse. So that's all I'll say on the game. I think the Rams have done a great job this season of just kind of staying the course. And from a team building perspective, Les Snead has done a great job pivoting off of Aaron Donald. You have an overlap year with Kobe Turner, who's now a captain of your defense at the defensive tackle position. Then you go out and you draft Braden Fisk and Jared Verse with your first 2 picks this season. You've cobbled together a secondary of 4th and 6th round picks. Cam Curl was a 7th round pick on his second contract now, coming over from Washington. And you've been able to paper over some really tough play at the second level. Christian Roseboom, has been playing linebacker for you. You trade Ernest Jones, and you're still able to get here and hold one of the better offenses in the league, not the best, but top third. One of the better offenses in the league, 9 points for the second consecutive week. Your last 3 meaningful games, you allowed 7 points a game. And this is Don Shula's grandson, Chris Shula. Don Shula, coach of the undefeated Dolphins in the 70s. Chris Shula was on a fucking heater. He did an excellent job to have this defense ready to go, to apply pressure to all of the weak points of the Vikings offense, and you got to tip your cap. As much as Sean McVay's design and the timing with which Matt Stafford played and some of the plays and how well that O-line held up fully healthy, I think the MVP of this game is Chris Shula, and I don't think it's particularly close. He did an excellent job, defensive coordinator of the Rams. Excellent job. For the Vikings, I mentioned, I think this solidifies Darnold being out, and I think it should. I think it was still more of a coin flip, whether he'd be back or not, or if he should be back or not. There was a line probably right down the middle with a lot of Vikings fans at this point, and the circumstances around bringing him back, the prerequisites of him coming back have also changed. Like I said, he's probably going to get a Godfather offer from some shit team and go play mediocre football for 3 years on a strong salary. But with the way he played towards the end of the season, even with Daniel Jones potentially coming back, we kind of got to look at him, feel for his personality, essentially picking him up and practice squad him for a few weeks. But Darnold might not get that multi-year deal with high guarantees that he thought he would. Who knows? Who knows if other teams are looking at that performance more than his body of work this season, or if they're taking the entire body of work and chalking, the really weeks 11 to 17 up to just an insane heater. And he played good football early in the season, but he had a lot of turnover-worthy plays early on still. And I could see his market being pretty significantly diminished. But there are going to be a lot of desperate teams because there are not many other free agent quarterbacks worth anything on the open market. We're talking Gardner Minshew's, we're talking Jameis Winston, Jacoby Brissett's, and the like. There's not, anyone with potential on the open market right now. And the quarterback class in the draft is a weak one by, most people I trust judgment, and you're probably a lot of teams that need one aren't going to be able to get up to where they can select one. So things are different there. The Vikings do have some key free agents, but they've got a lot of cap space. You could comfortably bring back Byron Murphy Jr., Cam Bynum, guys like that. If Harrison Smith doesn't retire, bring him back. Shaq Griffin and Stephon Gilmore are going to be free agents again. Maybe they get a decent deal coming off strong seasons, but if they can come back on a 1 year or one of them between Shaq Griffin and Gilmore, I think Shaq had a really good year. That'd be great. And you've got some holes on the interior defensive line. You've got some holes on the interior offensive line, but the bones of a really, really good team are still there. And hell, Flores might even be back. The only 2 interviews he's taken are with the 2 teams that are interviewing like 16 guys. And I think if he was going to take a job, he really wanted that Patriots job, going back over there. So that's as much as I can talk about it. Let's go to Bucks Commanders. Why not? Kev in the chat, you're absolutely right. See you in Vegas, Sam. See you in Tennessee. See you in somewhere else terrible. We'll see you wherever, Sam. It's just not going to be here. It can't be. It can't be the Jets again either, which is kind of funny because they may really be needing to pivot and aren't going to have the resources to do so. But let's talk Commanders Bucks. Jaden Daniels is electrifying, but so is Baker Mayfield. if I was, it's a good thing I'm not in a betting state, because if I was and I saw that play Baker Mayfield made on the scramble where he bounced off Bobby Wagner as at like really at the marker and powered forward for like 7-8 more yards, fucking dude, whatever in-game line there was for the Bucs to win outright, I would have hammered it. That was just one of those plays where you're like, okay, your quarterback's playing this gutsy. I think everybody's going to rise up and get this win here. I see Sam Darnold leaving the Vikings. If they wanted him, they would have signed him already. So, I mean, yeah, but the extension was never going to come down before the end of the season anyway. Now you might be in that franchise tag territory, and maybe the 1-year tag is actually better AAV than he's going to get on the open market, and he stays for one more bridge year. If McCarthy usurps him at one point in the season, it's a little bit whatever, but you're still taking on a big cap hit. Maybe it's a tag and trade scenario for a team that's willing to extend him, but that's not particularly fair to him. And the Vikings do operate interpersonally very, very respectfully and professionally. So I don't really see that happening either. But, I think they're going to see. I think, he's going to bring a comp pick back if he walks outright. But if they want him back, what they're going to be doing is keeping in communication with his agent, keeping in communication with Sam, gauging his market value, and deciding whether that's something they're willing to get close to or not. And I think he would take a slight discount to stay. I think that'd be prudent of him. But, who's to say? And also, for what it's worth, the last two and a half seasons, really since Kwesi took over as general manager, the whole competitive rebuild trope, it's all been building to this offseason, regardless of the regular season results. It's all been building to quarterback on a rookie contract, dead money off the books. The Vikings are still paying $40 million in dead money this season to Danielle Hunter, Kirk Cousins, and a couple other minor cap hits that are still on dead. But all that clears this upcoming season. You're now going to have clean books, quarterback you feel really good about on a rookie contract, and all the weapons in the world, a healthy Christian Darrisaw by the end of the season. So that's another thing that I think if you're in the general manager seat and you're kind of zoomed out, he might not even be considering bringing Sam back. He might just be ready to kind of get to his end game, which will be this offseason. So, but yeah, back to Baker. Fun to watch. Thing with him, it's the same reason Browns got rid of him. He's inconsistent. I mean, yeah. Yeah, he did have, I think he was tied for the league lead in interceptions this season. He's a little volatile, but he's got about as much heart as any quarterback there is. He's got about as much arm talent as any quarterback there is. And under Liam Cohen this season, that offense was one of the best in the league, full stop. Top 5, full stop. So if that pairing stays, I think you feel really good about what you have for the Bucs going forward. And Liam Cohen might get big time offers and Canales his way out of there, and Baker will have his third OC in 3 seasons. But I've got to think that he'll stay one more season. There's so many candidates out there. There's a lot of openings, but he's definitely not moving laterally to another OC job. And, he might not feel that he might self-scout and kind of realize he's not ready for a head coaching gig and just kind of continue to hone his scheme and make a name for himself with the Bucs. But I think he was fantastic this season. What they were able to do to stabilize after the Chris Godwin injury, and even without Godwin, the screen game was still the best in the league. Design, timing, playmakers, unbelievable screen game, and that insulates Baker a little bit. But they were also willing to push it down the field. Mike Evans certainly still has a little bit of juice, and for that body type and skill set, it's going to age pretty gracefully. He was never separating at the highest level. And on the Mike Evans topic, he kind of wiped the floor with Marshawn Lattimore in that fight that it always is with those two. But it's a team that I think has a lot of good pieces. They just need to figure something out on the defensive side of the ball. I assume Bowles is back, 3 straight playoff appearances. But his clock management stuff is questionable for sure at times. And, if not paired with a really strong OC, and it's a dice roll to get a third one in 3 seasons, I think it's a tough ask to see, him maintain what they've built over the last few seasons. But, a couple good pieces on the defensive side of the ball. And I think you're right back in business. I mean, Kalijah Cansey, Yaya Diaby, Vita Vea were really, really good up front. They just kind of need that ace edge to really put the pressure on, so you can do these sim pressures, so you can call a ton of fire zones and not be, kind of sacrificing your back end, because you'll generate quick pressure with the guys you're sending. And Bowles is still going to heat you up on late downs, but didn't work against Washington. 8 of 15 on third down, 3 for 5 on fourth. They're the best fourth down team in the history of the league in some metrics. And, like the stiff arm, the Jaden Daniels dagger stiff arm to Kalijah Cansey, I think kind of sums up this game, where it's just, like Todd Bowles' decision to settle for the field goal and tie it up. It's a tough one to make because Jaden Daniels doesn't shy away from big-time moments. I think for a lot of people, the first kind of coming out party in that regard for him, where it's like, holy shit, he's ready for prime time, was the Bengals game, the comeback, the go ball to Terry McLaurin in the back right of the end zone as he's getting drilled by a free rusher. To make that throw, to hang in there and make that throw in that moment, that's when I think for the kind of football collective, I think it was just all of us going, okay, yeah, this guy's going to be all right. We didn't realize, though, at that time, that he would continue to rise to every moment he encounters. Every moment he's a part of, he feels in control of it. And it's brilliant to watch. He manages the pocket really well. He manages pressure really well. The most scrambles in the history of the league. I think he had 75 scrambles on the season. But they aren't like erratic, goofy backyard football scrambles. Not that he doesn't keep his eyes downfield a little bit, but when he gets out, it's just, he's so decisive. He sees the free runner. Quarterback, we talked about it with Stafford and Darnold. Quarterback's responsible for a free runner. You're responsible for him pre-snap, and you're responsible for him post-snap. Whether you're going to slide to that side and try to account for him pre-snap, or you're going to know you're going to be hot and either have to make a move on him or get the ball out faster than he gets to you, you're responsible for that free rusher. And when Jaden Daniels has that responsibility, he'll just outrun him. He'll quickly make that decision. He'll get out of the pocket. He'll pick up a few yards, and he'll keep this offense in advantageous downs and distances. And that works great with a play caller like Cliff Kingsbury, who's willing to nickel and dime you on first and second to get into these manageable third downs. And like I said, this team, 3rd and 5, they'll run it up the middle to get to a 4th and 2 because they know they're able to just go to a zone read with Jaden and Brian Robinson and know that Jaden, as a rookie, with 70 starts or whatever it is, college starts under his belt, coming in as NFL ready as he was, you get into those really high leverage moments and you put it in his hands and trust him to make the right read. And he's done that consistently all season long. It's a great job by Dan Quinn bringing Cliff in and kind of realizing how great that pairing could be. And, you know, I mean, if I'm rooting for a team in the NFC, it's the Commanders. I think if anybody's impartial, it's probably the Commanders for them too. Just the underdog, the rookie quarterback, Terry McLaurin finally with some competent quarterbacking. Who else has been a huge Terry McLaurin fan for 6 years and never really gotten any satisfaction out of it? Right now we're getting that. Now Terry McLaurin is just dominating Jamel Dean. And we're able to see on the broadcast that he's dominating good cornerbacks because his quarterback can get him the ball. And Jaden's willing to throw the 50-50 for him, but he's also able to put that football in a shoebox where only Terry McLaurin can catch it. And that connection can take you a really long way in the playoffs if you're able to leverage it and you're able to be as just calculated and consistent and creative with your play calling and your coaching decisions. And I think they could ride that for another week or two. Why not? But Washington goes to Detroit. The Rams will go to Philly. So let's talk a little bit of Packers, Eagles. Sorry, my cat was going after a paper bag. But before I do that, let's bring in Ben Parker, my co-host. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Hello, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the football weekend. And I know not everybody did because not everybody could. But, yeah, rocking and rolling here, man. Got a lot to talk about.
Yeah. You know, I spared you my Vikings diatribe so we can get right into right into a team I'm much more comfortable talking about the end of its season with Packers, Eagles. I have a lot of thoughts on this game, but I'll kick it over to you so I can catch my breath a little bit here. What are your main takeaways kind of for the way I've been framing it this show is you know, kind of for Philly going forward with the Commanders matchup coming up, and also how this makes you feel about the Packers going forward as the team that's been eliminated and some things you think they should be looking at this offseason.
Yeah, I'll you know me, I love all-season stuff. So let me stay on the Packers in the offseason. My opinion on them hasn't changed this entire year, honestly. I like Green Bay. I like LaFleur. I like Jordan Love. I like their defense. I like their offensive weapons, but I don't mean to use a pun here, I don't love hardly anything that Green Bay's got going on other than maybe LaFleur. You could see it go back to, I don't know, week 6 or 7, right, when Jordan Love had come back off of the injuries and was still kind of working his way back through. You could see him for about 3 or 4 weeks there throw for lots of yardage and score points, but the interceptions were piling up. I forget the number. It was a lot of picks. And from that point forward, LaFleur started changing everything about what he was allowing Jordan Love to do. It was a lot more short passes, a lot more jet sweeps, a lot more run the ball first, run the ball second. Let Jordan Love rescue me out of 3rd and longs when he can, but let's limit these dadgum interceptions because Jordan Love's decision-making is not good. You mentioned it several weeks ago. I think you called it arm arrogance, all right? Jordan Love can beat anybody any given week, and he can lose to anybody even any given week. So moving forward, you got who you got. You already are committed to Jordan Love. Now let's just start supporting him in every way possible, make the rest of the team as good as it can be. But that is Jordan Love, okay? He's not Brett Favre, and he's not Aaron Rodgers, and maybe he grows into that in a season or two, but that's not who he is, all right? So just keep working with who he is. You know, you got a good football team there in Green Bay. They'll stay good, I think, but, you know, they are not elite, and truly looking back, it's easy to say they just never were.
Yeah. I think I agree. You know, they were kind of DVOA darlings for a lot of the season. I think they finished 6th in composite DVOA. Advanced metrics did like them. You know, you saw So here's what's interesting is that defense went out and played really, really well. Saquon Barkley had a sub 30% success rate, rushing success rate. They did a really good job actually generating pressure over the course of the game, winning, some of those matchups. Hafley doesn't like to send more than 4, but they were getting there a little bit and affecting the game more than a lot of people will say. A lot of people will say, "Oh, here's another example of the Philly O-line just dominating everybody, and look at Saquon and who's going to stop this offense." And frankly, Jeffrey brings up the Jordan Love not being fully healthy for this game. I mean, Jalen Hurts probably wasn't either. Week off a concussion, and I think he's got to be their biggest question mark going forward. They're able to establish the run early, but I mean after that Dotson touchdown, it looked like they were just going to blow the doors off that game. It looked like it was going to be 38-7. Just after that first touchdown, that's how it felt because the momentum swung so immediately. And as soon as that opening kickoff fumble, I'm like, well, yeah, Philly starts the second half with the ball too. This might get really ugly. And for what it's worth, the Packers defense played really well. No Jair Alexander. I mean, Edrin Cooper is going to be a player. I mean, he's like a full-sized Ivan Pace. He's like a full NFL size Ivan Pace with the measurables. And I mean, he's shot out of a cannon. He's a great player. But they've got to fix some things in the secondary, and I think they need kind of that ace pass rusher because Rashawn Gary is no longer that. He had a couple years stretch where it looked like his growth was going to just kind of continue linearly, and I don't know if he's had some nagging things, but he just hasn't been that guy this season or really last season. So kind of similar to the Bucs, like I said, if you've been here, I think they need a pass rushing ace to really complement the way they want to play defense. And those guys on the back end play hard. I really like their safeties, but especially if Jair's not going to be long for the league, and it's starting to trend that way, it's like almost like a Bakhtiari situation. You're like, okay, but are you ever going to play again? They've got to figure something out there as well. Love was really bad on like true dropbacks, and I'm going to pull up because somebody, I think it was Brett Coleman, had it all in one place. And I'm just going to rattle it off before we wrap up talking about this game because I think the Packers defense gave them every opportunity to win this game, and they weren't able to execute. And not to take anything away from Philly's defense, which has been fantastic the last quarter of the season. And really since they put Cooper DeJean in at the slot. And I watched every Cooper DeJean snap over the preseason, and I was like, man, this guy's got to play in the slot, right? The way he defended the run, as twitchy as he was in coverage. And they rolled out Avonte Maddox again for 4 weeks. And the stat that was just bonkers. In the first 4 weeks, the Eagles allowed 9 yards per slot target. Anything that targeted Avonte Maddox in the slot, they were allowing 9 yards per pass to the slot. That was the second worst in the league. Since Cooper DeJean took over in the slot, that number is 5.2, which is the best in the league by 1.2 yards per play. The next best yards allowed per slot target is 6.4. Cooper DeJean has been 5.2 since he took over. And that's unlocked a lot for Philly. Fangio's got everybody on the same page. And they're finally starting to get there. I mean, no Brandon Graham now, but they've still got a bevy of pass rushers. Zach Bond, the read Zach Bond made on the interception was beautiful. It's kind of what Kamu Grugier-Hill did Jordan Love in week 4, which was, okay, yeah, I see the curl in front of me, but I know you're trying to high-low me right now. I know it. I've watched the tape. And he baited Jordan Love's eyes just enough to think he was triggering down, just kind of wafted back into the passing zone, knew the dig was coming behind him, picked it off. All pro. Full stop. Zach Bond, hell of a player. And so that Philly defense was awesome, but the Packers just, there were too many missed opportunities. And I stopped looking for it, but let's see here. I'll find it in a second. But there's a slew of stats that I saw of Jordan Love's kind of true dropbacks. And, and that just essentially eliminates play action, screens, things like that. So it isolates, the true dropbacks of a player. And here we go. So non-play action, non-RPO, non-screen passes, all season, including the playoff game for Jordan Love. 57.7% completion, 15 touchdowns, 15 picks, 7.5 yards per attempt, a 77.6 rating. That's 26th in completion percentage among all qualifying passers, 27th in passer rating, worst TD interception ratio among all starters. That adjusted completion percentage was 68.5, which is also not great for the context. So, it's when you have him back there, there's no window dressing. It's just him back there to rip it. He's really mistake prone. And I think that's part of it. Like that arm arrogance, especially coming back off the injury he came off of, not being able to feel his throwing hand on Tuesday and then playing on Sunday. It's kind of like you ever play baseball growing up and you piss your coach off bad enough that he does one of the drills and just like sprints harder than he has in 20 years. And you can kind of see him let up as he's trying to show you how to finish the rep. He just kind of lets up. Like it's that same kind of mentality where it's like, I was the shit last time I remember doing this. I just need to do that. And it just doesn't work. That's how Jordan Love was throwing outside the hashes or outside the numbers, on Sunday. Like it just wasn't there. And he has it in him. He just wasn't ready to do that. And the game plan was catered to that. But there were still instances where you had to have shit like that and he couldn't provide it for you.
Eagles the better team. Green Bay needed everything to go right to win this game. Philadelphia didn't play a great game. I mean, they just didn't. Wasn't Philly's best game either. And, ultimately Philadelphia just the better team here. Even if Green Bay had played a perfect game, they still might not have won this game. But they didn't play a perfect game. Very sloppy. Jordan Love struggling too.
Yeah. And that's fine. I think they've got a lot to work on, and I think they're in a really good spot. If you adjust for snap count, they're still the second youngest team in the league. I think the youngest offense in the league, adjusted for snap share. So, hey, you get a number one receiver, kind of sort out that pecking order. You get somebody who can really, really separate against man coverage. I think you're cooking with gas for the Packers. And I'm still relatively high on Jordan Love. He's very volatile as a performer, but the high end stuff is just still. I'm such a sucker for it. I mean, that's why I'm so in love with like Geno Smith, and why I love watching Stafford. Just because, and not that Stafford makes a ton of mistakes necessarily, but just like the high end plays those guys make, adjusting your arm slot, off platform stuff, guy in your face, little subtle pocket movement to get the ball off. They all do that shit at such a high level. It just hasn't been consistent yet for Love. And I think it'll get there. I don't think he's necessarily the the next Hall of Famer in the chain for Green Bay, but I still like his skill set, and I think they'll be just fine. They're going to be competitive for a while here. A team that might not be competitive for too much longer, if they keep this up, is the Steelers. This game we don't have to spend too much time on this game. I think we can kind of the only really meaningful thing I took away from this game was just the amount of fuck you that the Ravens called plays with. And when Derrick Henry was on the field on first down, they ran the ball every time. 100% run rate on first down. Just hey, you know what we're doing. I dare you to stop it. I dare you to stop it. I'm gonna roll Patrick Ricard across the formation, and we're gonna crack block your edge, and you're just gonna have to figure something out. How about a Tyler Linderbaum, Daniel Falele double team? Have fun with that. We're running right behind him. And Henry got rolling. Lamar was fantastic. They dominated. It was the really glaring deficiencies of the Steelers offense were on full display. And I think they're going to have to figure something out. To Jeffrey's point here, pie in the sky for me is wrong comment. Pie in the sky for me is the Steelers going and getting Geno Smith. That'd be something I could get behind. Not that I don't like what McDonald's putting together in Seattle. I think just there's I don't think they should. I just think there's a chance they decide to pivot off of him now and might kind of soft reset things. Maybe even consider moving DK just to kind of reset things around JSN, around those backs, and around a healthy offensive line. But they're going to have to figure something out at quarterback. Fields, Wilson, all expiring. I talked about the dearth of talent on the open market for quarterbacks. Sammy Darnold, maybe. You're going to want to – Sammy Darnold with Arthur Smith, if he's still back, that could be kind of interesting. That could raise your floor a little bit. Raise your ceiling a little bit. Your floor is probably going to be about as low as it ever was. But I don't know. There's not a ton of holes on the team necessarily. You've got a lot of young offensive line pieces you feel really good about. If Pickens is in a good mood, you got a great receiver there. I think you're going to want another separator as a receiver, like just somebody to pair with Pickens that's not just older Pickens in Mike Williams. Williams was never as dynamic of an athlete, never as, flexible, but archetype-wise, it's just, hey, are you, 6'2" plus, long arms? All right, we're going to throw you back shoulder fades and hope and pray. But, I think at least one of those backs has to go, probably Najee. 4,000-yard seasons isn't what it used to be, and on a down-to-down basis, he's just an okay back. So I don't know. Any other kind of big needs jump out at you when you think about the Steelers this offseason? And then also real quick, does this change? Did this game change your perspective on the Ravens at all?
No, I saw what I expected to see out of the Ravens, especially considering they didn't have Zay Flowers. It's the Lamar show, all right? Derrick Henry has been a huge part of this team looking different and stronger this year. But this was Lamar first. Lamar, because the Steelers were crashing down on Derrick Henry all during the first and second quarter. It was helping during the first quarter. They had some 0 stops, some -1 stops in the first quarter. But Lamar was out there Lamar looks like a video game player. All right, that's what he looks like. He just runs over here, to about where the numbers are. He surveys the field. Oh, there's a defender coming. Let me jog over here to the sideline, survey the field some more. If there's still nobody open, I'll just make a little duck and dash here and pick up 5 or 7 yards, and now it's 2nd and 3. That's how the whole first quarter went, and then Derrick Henry got loose, and it was like boom, 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 and that was it. That was done. But the real problem here, besides the fact that you're outclassed by Lamar, the real problem here, you mentioned it, it's the Pittsburgh offense. They couldn't score. They couldn't punch back. So much so that I think it was Kirk Herbstreit who said the Steelers look like they're not giving effort. But that really wasn't the case. They just could not punch back on offense, and that's been the case. We expected at the outset of the season for that to really be the case, that this Steelers offense would be up and down, bit of a struggle, but then mid-season we saw it pick up. But no, the past 6 weeks, it's been a real struggle. It was the reason they couldn't compete in this game. So, yeah, the Steelers need to upgrade the offense, specifically quarterback, specifically wide receivers. That's just really what they need to focus on during the offseason.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, they did they performed admirably, I think, on the defensive side of the football. But their offense is kind of the opposite of what I talked about with Washington, where it seems like, they're always laser focused on converting the series, while Pittsburgh's offense is really only focused on converting the drive. And what I mean by that is Washington will take first down and 10, and they'll, play like they have 4 downs to get that 10 yards. They'll run quick game. They'll do a little zone read. They'll run it up the gut. They'll get 3 yards, 4 yards, set themselves up for a second and medium. Right. Second and medium, they're extremely comfortable taking a shot at that point, because they know when they get to third and medium, they're going to be comfortable picking up 4 yards and getting to a 4th and short and feel like they can convert that if they can get close to midfield. And they're ready to pull that trigger. I think with Pittsburgh, there's too much – and, this might be pretty apt, like self-evaluation from Arthur Smith, but they feel like they're at any point on a series – they're more concerned with an opportunity at a 30, 40-plus yard pass than they are setting themselves up for a short pass that'll get you a first down and move the sticks. They'll if they get stopped on a Najee Harris run for a yard or two, they go, okay, well, we got to throw. They go, okay, well, we're throwing now, and we don't really have access to a lot of easy stuff that a lot of other teams do, unless we really want to scheme Calvin Austin open horizontally or something. Hey, let's run a sail and a go to the boundary side and just throw one up to George Pickens. And it's 2nd and 9, but fuck it, we're going to throw it 40 yards and get to 3rd and 9 and then figure it out. I mean, the Texans are like this. The Texans, I think, start drives on 3rd and 9. I think they started skipping the first couple downs at a certain point, but they just make it so difficult on themselves. And they were able to run the ball and establish things in that game, but that hasn't been the case all year. So, yeah, I love the way Pittsburgh plays. I love Mike Tomlin. I love the defense. But far and away, the 2 worst defensive performances from Wild Card Weekend by EPA per play were the Steelers and the Broncos, and those are 2 phenomenal defenses that don't have the teeth on the other side of the ball. Right. And those offenses weren't doing them any favors.
That is the key, because you can only do so much. I mean, regular season, you have kind of the waves going back and forth. You can kind of fake your way through it if you're a good coaching staff. You get to the playoffs, everybody you play is good. Your weaknesses will be exposed if you have any. They will be attacked and exposed by teams who are capable of doing it. So if you're Denver sitting there and you can't score, you're just slowly but surely going to get choked out. That's what's going to happen.
Yep, exactly. And let's gloss over that choking out you talked about there. So Also want to shout out this extreme ball knowledge in the comments. Geno Smith is a better quarterback than what people give him credit for as well. You are talking to the right people, Jeffrey. Watch the goddamn tape. I don't want to hear a single thing about, cumulative interception numbers, or what have you. I don't think I've seen – I mean, Geno Smith plays with some of the most audacity of anybody at the position. And that's just something that that's honorable. He plays the quarterback position honorably. And I think you've got to be able to kind of take that context with all these numbers you're looking at a certain point, not make these sweeping declarations that, he's mid or whatever they want to call him on fucking Twitter.
I'll call him mid. I hate to say it. You and I haven't discussed Geno. Listen, he's aggressive. He's a good passer, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you're not going to win a Super Bowl with him. So for now, I'm happy with him, okay? Because you're not paying him a lot of money, right? The deal is fine. It's got that mid-level. But, boy, how many weeks are you at a disadvantage with him? I mean, it's not a few. It's several. So, I don't have him anywhere near top 6 or 8. But I do like the work that he provides because every week you can compete with him, and some weeks you will have the advantage, So, yeah. I'm always going to feel like I'm embarrassingly outgunned when I go up against the top 4. I don't even think I'm close when I roll in with Geno Smith. I mean, I don't think I have a smoker's chance in hell, to be honest. But, can I
think
with Dak Prescott?
He's part of that. Yeah. He's part of that group that I think are, just woefully underevaluated by like the lay person who watches football, like that 11 to 14 kind of range. The takes on those kind of guys are just flooded with people who you can tell only watch their favorite team and don't realize there's 17 worse starting quarterbacks in the league.
Right. There are.
It's it's the Vikings fans who think Kevin O'Connell's a bad play caller and he's got to go. It's like, hey, man, there's 20 offenses you'd blow your brains out if you had to watch every week. I'm going to tell you that right now. Yeah, exactly, Lee. This is what we were talking about with the reciprocity of offense and defense. Yeah, if your defense is just hung out there to dry, not only are the offense going to have more opportunities to put points up on them, they're also going to get worn down. And it's just not tenable. And that's what happened to the Broncos. They came out hot. It was 7-3 Broncos at one point. Everybody's like, oh, that spread was crazy. What's Vegas doing? And then, Vegas made their money in the end. That throw to Ty Johnson in the back of the end zone on the scramble drill, do you recall?
I'm sorry. I was watching
real.
my work here. Yeah, shoot at me here.
Oh, you're good. The that throw to Ty Johnson in the back of the end zone.
Yeah. Oh, that was beautiful, man.
Josh Allen. Come the fuck on, dude. Come on.
What else can you do?
It was funny too, because like, what do you do? Well, I was just kind of cheering for a close game since I was pretty impartial. I was like, let's have the Broncos like take it down to the wire. That ball came out of his hands, and in the back of my head, I was kind of like, ooh, yeah, like at worst, it's a turnover on downs, or they got a kick. I think it was 3rd or 4th. I can't remember. And he hauls that in, and then you watch him haul it in. And you're like, well, he's got to be out. And no, your backup running back just made one of the craziest inbounds catches you're ever going to see. And I don't know. Josh was unbelievable. And now we get to see Josh and Lamar round 2. So that's about as good as you can ask for. Buffalo's O-line, what they've done schematically and structurally it was a 4th and 1. Thanks, Lee. What they've done schematically and structurally to enable this run game and allow Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, James Cook all to stay fresh, get action, run the ball effectively. They use a 6th O lineman more often than any team in the league, and they use that to kind of supplement an offensive line that's good, not great. They have two really, really good tackles, piecemeal the rest of the way a little bit. But they bring that sixth lineman on more often than any team in the league. And against Denver, it was like, oh, okay, do you have 240-pound edge rushers? All right. try to be the force player against, Spencer Brown on one side, or I can't even think of the sixth guy's name they bring in, or Deion Dawkins, or our third tackle, as opposed to Dalton Kincaid. Try to spill a run to the outside when you're getting double teamed by Spencer Brown and another tackle. Like, it's just not something a lot of defenses can contend with, just from like a size and strength perspective. When they go to this heavy personnel, it's like, a lot of teams are going. Buffalo's one of them on the other side of the ball. Buffalo would probably match that with nickel and get wiped off the field like they did when they played the Ravens the first time. And they caught the Broncos in that a couple times. And they just had a lot of light bodies in the box, and they got punished for it. And the Bills do that better than anybody. Let's move on to the last one on the list, and then I want to hear what you think about Texans Chiefs right after this, to give the folks at home a little bit of a preview from a Chiefs connoisseur like yourself. Chargers Texans, what the hell was that? Scorigami, so that's cool. 32-12, we take those any way we can get them. But holy shit, did the Chargers kind of get pantsed in that one. And for, the messaging and kind of the vibe around that team, like if people didn't watch the Chargers this year and kind of just heard about them, they would think, oh, this team is one of the best running teams in football. Hard nose, Harbaugh team. Herbert has, 200 less pass attempts than he did in 2021. They've got to be just grinding it out and kicking your ass up and down the field, and they don't. Their running game's shit. There was enough pressure on Justin Herbert in that game, and not all of the bad throws were on him, but they didn't do him any favors with the rest of, the Greg Roman, offense. And, Dobbins and Edwards, and you got some good production from Dobbins early on, but you are going to need some help on the interior. Jamari Salyer was a liability. And, another team with two great tackles, Ladd McConkey, unreal. But you need a second and third option in the passing game. Will Dissly had two of the most consequential drops of the day. And that was one of your main targets. So, that offense was anemic at times if they weren't getting the ball to Ladd McConkey. And there's few better separators than Ladd McConkey for, if you kind of pigeonholed him as like a, like a Edelman or Amendola or, the Chris, whatever his name was, that other little white Patriots receiver. If you pigeonholed him as one of those guys, I think you're starting to eat some words, because this dude is ridiculous after the catch. He's ridiculous on his route stem. His releases are phenomenal. And he's got late hands, or he shows late hands. He's got great body control. And, this is just a really, really good receiver, but you've got nothing else. Quentin Johnson is a liability a lot of the time. For as dynamic as he is after the catch and all that, keyword catch. So, they've got to figure something out there. I think the defense had a rough day too, but for Houston to dominate the defensive line, or the line of scrimmage on the defensive side of the ball the way they did, that's exactly what you want to see if you're a Houston fan and you want to make a run. CJ Stroud and Nico Collins are going to be able to connect just a few times to keep you ahead of things. And then you're just going to have Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter and Danico Autry just tee off and pin their ears back. And Danico Autry, quietly one of the best signings of the offseason, going from Tennessee over to Houston. And it just wrecking shop in that playoff game. He was unbelievable. And the speed with which Will Anderson is able to stunt inside is unreal. As a looper, he is so fast that these games, when you're rushing 4, don't even take that long to develop. That's one of the issues with the Vikings blitzes. When you're running stunts in games with a 5-man pressure, which is essentially a 4-man pressure for the Vikings. They blitz 5 half the time. But when everything is a game and you don't have a dominant one-on-one rusher, sometimes you're just giving them too much time. And when you're sending 5, you've only got 6 in coverage, and it's just not going to be feasible. When a guy like Will Anderson's your looper, he might as well have just bull rushed. I mean, he is there so quick. And Derek Stingley also better than Sauce Gardner. He's so good. It's him and Surtain for me. I mean, what he put out there, Kamari Laster, I loved the fit to Houston with the amount of quarters they run. He doesn't have to track people side to side very often. He's able to use the boundary as a second defender and just make plays out there. So, I mean, I think you've got to feel really good about Houston's defense. But my question for you before we get out of here, Ben, is how do you feel about Houston's defense coming to Arrowhead for this divisional round matchup? Is that pass rush, especially if, we've still got some things going on at left tackle. Is Tooney going to be out at left tackle again? Do we know?
I haven't heard yet. It's a great question.
Okay. So if whether he is or not, left tackle is kind of an issue because you're either not maximizing Joe Tooney or you have a big issue at left tackle. Does that pass rush in particular, and everybody playing with their hair on fire in coverage, does this defense really scare you coming into this game? Because frankly, the offense is still pretty pedestrian. Just with some big pop potential. So how are you feeling about that matchup?
I love this Houston defense, man. You mentioned it, Petrie and Anderson. Goodness gracious. I mean, they are so much fun to watch because they are just so good. I mean, those are picks that are panning out here, and D'Amico Ryans knows how to use them. Real quick, I'm going to hit the listeners here before I answer the Chiefs take. Jeffrey coming in with a hot take, says Geno Smith and Justin Herbert on the same level. Right now, who can argue, man? I mean, you watch them play. Lee's got the Texans can't win away from home, and then Jeffrey coming back in with Josh Palmer could be a number 1 receiver on a few teams. Don't know why they give him the ball more. So thank you, Jeff and Lee, both for hopping in the entire show, really. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, they felt Palmer's absence.
If I'm Kansas City, I'm not necessarily worried any more than I have been. My biggest worry if I'm Kansas City is that my offense sucks. Okay, but we are remarkably efficient because we have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. That's why. It's nothing else. It's Mahomes and Reid. So they have become masters at getting rid of the ball quickly. And Mahomes didn't do that a lot 3 years ago. Mahomes has become a master at getting rid of the ball quickly. This entire receiving core, which is not a great receiving core, they have become masters at run your route for 1.5 seconds and then just go toward Mahomes' right, okay? That's how this offense works. It's little cuts and dices, loops, and they do not beat themselves. They don't have a lot of stupid before-snap penalties or a lot of ridiculous, aggressive after-snap penalties. When you look at this offense, they can run the football a little bit. They do lots of screens, lots of jet sweeps, but Mahomes is always getting the ball out quick. And if he sees zero high or single high, he is going to kill you out there. He will burn you up. So don't do that because he will torch you in a heartbeat. But, man, they just run efficiently. They give themselves third and shorts consistently. Not every series, but that's what they do. The pass rush is a problem for Kansas City to handle. Houston will create problems for this Kansas City offense because of it. All right. But still, Kansas City is so used to doing this, they will put up 20 points. Okay. That's what Kansas City does. 20 to 24 points, and that'll probably be enough to win. Because on the flip side, we've got a Houston offense that, even though, listen, they looked good in the second half against the Chargers, they really put together an excellent game plan the second half against the Chargers, where Stroud himself was doing a lot of slicing and dicing, getting the ball out quick, just throwing out these short routes on the flies. But that's going to be different against Kansas City. Kansas City is a master at getting you into third and longs. And you mentioned it earlier, Houston gets into a lot of third and longs. And that's right where Kansas City excels. Nobody's better at getting after you than Steve Spagnuolo on third and longs. And he's even started this past couple of years doing it on second and longs, where he just really comes after you then too. Even if he doesn't bring everybody, it makes it look like he's bringing everybody. So Kansas City is so good at that here. I'm really struggling to see Houston come in here and win this thing, even though it probably will be kind of a close, jaggedy game throughout. But that's about where I'm at here. Kansas City's biggest problem is themselves, but they don't beat themselves.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Texans are going to want to come in there and just make it ugly. Right. And I think the Chiefs will welcome that. I think they'll say, "Oh, great, you want to come down here where we live? Sounds good. We'll play as ugly as you fucking want, dude." So yeah, I think you're right, and they just do such a better job of keeping themselves out of really precarious downs and distances. And then on the defensive side, like if you're going to give me any coordinator, offensive or defensive, for one playoff game with a week of prep, it's probably Steve Spagnuolo.
Wow.
2021 Lou Anarumo, maybe in the conversation. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I mean, it's Spags, when on those Giants defenses going up against the Pats. Yeah. And then every playoff matchup since he's been with Kansas City, it's just been a really cogent, effective, oftentimes really creative plan. And, they poke and prod, and he'll spend all game setting up a pressure for, a third down in the fourth quarter. And then he'll actually send it and pull the trigger and give you the same look you've been seeing all game with a little bit of a switch up. Maybe instead of a stim pressure, it's actually an overload blitz this time with the same alignment. Or maybe, he's been running a fire zone out of this alignment all day, and then he brings the creeper down, and all of a sudden you'll drop 8. And it's always on those high leverage downs where he just pulls the rug out from what he's been doing all game. Like the really good one-on-one pass rushers, like the Neil Hunter. He'll give you the long arm for 3 quarters. And then, in the fourth one, on a big third down in the fourth, he'll go speed to power and or give you a rip move or hit you with the inside spin he's been setting up all game. So it's very much that with Spags. And I think, for Bobby Slowick offense, that's very kind of set in its ways. If they can't get wide zone going, it's going to be third and long all day. And I think that's advantage Chiefs, but I do think it'll be kind of close and ugly. And I think the score will look a lot closer than the game does, if that makes sense. Like, I think the Chiefs could dominate and win like 23-14 or something, but yeah. Jeffrey is big on Dameon Pierce. I was a Dameon Pierce guy myself, pre-injury. But I mean, Mixon's was really important last week. I think they still feel good about kind of letting him roll. I was the same way though. Like, I didn't see that acquisition in kind of the same realm as like the Henry, Jacobs, Saquon acquisitions we got this last offseason. I didn't think it was gonna be that kind of impact, but he's been good, I think. And Pierce has just kind of been supplementary. So, all right. Well, Ben is predicting a big Chiefs win. And we won't have time to preview any other games, but we'll recap them next Tuesday. So stick right here with us. We'll be back with some more stuff just like this. If you're still with us, thank you for sticking around. Commenters, Jeff, Lee, Kev, Thank you for jumping in, and stick around for next week. Ben, just let the people know where they can find the rest of your work in the meantime.
YouTube Sports and Money KC just did an episode. It just did post right now. It's up right now. We hit the playoff predictions for the next round, and then we got into the coaches board again. So moving into the off season, we covered the Vrabel to the Patriots, McCarthy off the Cowboys, and then we looked at all 6 teams and about 12 different candidates who we like to get those best jobs and who's maybe hanging out in the cold. So it's Sports and Money KC over on YouTube.
Check it out. If you want to follow any of my other work, I cover the Vikings for zonecoverage.com. Just type in zonecoverage.com/Vikings, and you will see one of my articles towards the top, publishing twice a week over there. I considered retiring, but I think I am going to keep writing now that I had a night to sleep on it. So I'll have a biggest takeaway from the season overall dropping this week. And then it'll be off-season heavy. What the Vikings can take away going forward from like the Final Four teams. We'll have mock off seasons over there. The whole 9. We are hopelessly involved. So check it out, and then stick right here for every Tuesday. Stick right here tomorrow as well. We have ADP, Another Damn Fantasy Podcast, which I think is going tomorrow, even though playoffs are over. And then Thursday we've got Kev and James talking some sports as well. So plenty to check out on the channel. Stick with us. Subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys. Unreal.